Fabulous. So welcome everyone to our third Innohive by Ideas UK event. And as you know, Ideas UK is all about embedding innovation into the DNA of every organisation. As I mentioned, we have the wonderful Crystal Stewart with us today. And before I hand over to Connor and Crystal, I just wanted to also announce that the Idea of the Year competition 2024 is now open to entry. So as you know, it is free to enter for our member organisations. It's a great way of celebrating employees who have really come up with ideas that have made a real difference to your business. It's a way to say thank you to them, a way to really recognise those individuals, those ideas, and actually your programs that really generate a benefit to your business. So we open to entries on Monday. As before, there are 9 categories to enter. So you can see them here: sustainability, health and safety, customer focus, etc. You can enter up to 10 ideas, and we are looking for ideas that have been implemented within the last 12 to 18 months. So you can really demonstrate the benefit that your idea has delivered. We evaluate those ideas on those 4 key criteria: the impact, the economic viability, the applicability, and how innovative is that idea. So you know those evaluation criteria that our independent panel of judges will be looking for. And as always, should you reach the final stage, we have now booked our 37th annual conference at Shrigley Hall near Manchester, which will be taking place on Wednesday the 6th and Thursday the 7th of November. So that's when those final stages of our face-to-face judging happens, and that all-important awards dinner. So I do hope you will be able to join us then. So I am now going to stop sharing my slides and, as I say, hand over to Crystal and Connor to take away the rest of the session. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Tina. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that conference in Manchester later this year as well. So I'll be there. It's going to be a great time. So brilliant. Right. So we've got Crystal here today. Crystal is a family solicitor. So you might be thinking, not the ordinary sort of guest on these Innohive events, right? But there's good reason for that. I met Crystal last year at a networking event, and after talking to her, obviously I do innovation consulting, innovation training. So I'm teaching people innovation all the time. And after meeting her last year and having some conversations, I was just absolutely blown away with the amount of innovation Crystal brings to a family solicitor role in her own business that she runs. So, not only the entrepreneurial aspects, but actually running the service of family solicitation, right? I was really, really impressed. So I thought we better get her onto, Innohive and sort of sharing her little nuggets of wisdom with everyone on just, how she actually brings innovation in a role that you just, I wouldn't say, most people link to innovation. So sort of really interesting around that. So I am just full of questions for Crystal. Okay. I've got so many I want to ask her. However, this is an interactive event. Okay. So if you have any questions for Crystal, do get them into chat. Okay. And we're going to be asking Crystal those questions. And alternatively, if you want to raise your hand, you can maybe unmute and we can sort of get some other interviewers than just me. I'm going to be doing my best sort of Paxman impression. You can all let me know how my interviewing skills are after. I don't often interview people. But yeah, really exciting to hear from her. So Crystal, first of all, let's hear the story of Crystal. How did Crystal come to be, right? What's your background? What's brought you here today? Just give us a little bit of more information about you.
Well, firstly, thank you so much, Connor, and the Ideas UK network for inviting me to this webinar today. It's wonderful to be here to share, as you said, Connor, what may be an interesting take on how family law can be used to support clients and, importantly, show innovation. I think the world is constantly moving and we need to embrace change and think of better ways to serve our clients. And that's actually quite neatly fits into why I started to decide to found Stalwart Solicitors and the practices and ideas that are behind that. So bit of an unconventional background. I'm actually a family lawyer, but I also am a jazz singer. I went to a performing arts school and college. Thought if I don't become a singer, I should probably do a degree. So I did a law and politics degree, really liked the legal side, did a master's in family law and became a family lawyer. And I've been a family lawyer for 11 years now. Still absolutely love the job. And I think, you know, they say in life, do what you love and love what you do. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about family law and always thinking of ways that I can serve our clients to increase their experience in terms of client care and those sorts of things. And so in 2019, September, I founded Stalwart Solicitors, which is a private family law firm. So when I say private family law, I mean areas of family law that encompass anything that individuals can issue applications themselves at court, as opposed to if the local authority is involved, if there's a risk of harm to children, like child protection concerns. And so the areas of law we cover are things like divorce and children matters and prenuptial agreements if you want to protect wealth prior to marriage, and things like cohabitation agreement. Again, many people think there's such thing as a common law spouse, which there isn't, which means that if you're going to live with someone and you're putting money into that property, you need an agreement to set out and make clear who owns what and what the percentages of that ownership are. And then also children matters, where children live and time spent with other parents, and protective orders. If you feel you're at risk of harm, you can actually get orders preventing a partner or an ex-partner or family member from coming near you. And so I founded the firm with the idea of being a little bit different from more of the traditional family law firms that we all think of when we think of law. So to think of being modern and actually thinking about what the clients were telling me they wanted. The clients were telling me that they wanted more flexibility, that they wanted their lawyers to work around them and to work around their life commitments. And I was really excited by that. I thought, let's try and found a firm whereby I'm putting clients at the heart of what we do and making things really flexible for them.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. So before we actually get into the sort of nitty gritty of how you've just brought so much innovation into the field, just let me know about how the field is at the minute. So in terms of family law, you know, how much innovation is around there, sort of taking you out of the equation? My sort of first take of it, which might be wrong, is that it seems like it could be quite a stagnant sort of field, and maybe people aren't quite innovating as much as you are. So what's the sort of picture of family law at the minute? How is that with other family law practices?
Yes, so many family law practices are quite traditional in nature, so expecting the client to come to their offices between 9 and 5:30. There has been some movement after COVID that I think more are open to the idea of online meetings, but there's still a flavour, especially in the court system, whereby, you know, they want hard copy documents if you go to court. Online hearings are still available, but have been much more restricted post-COVID. So I think in general, it's an idea that there is the feeling of wanting to go back to the old practices pre-COVID. I mean, my firm was founded in 2019, so prior to COVID anyway, but one would have hoped that post-COVID, we would have used some of the positives that came from that in terms of the virtual aspects and perhaps more of the flexibility even lawyers afforded themselves by having to work remotely and things like that. But I think law is just quite a traditional profession. So it takes some time to think, well, you can still have the history and the tradition of the profession while using innovation to find modern ways of serving clients.
Yeah, no, brilliant. That's amazing. So let's flip it on its head then. So how have you sort of counteracted some of those? So it seems like from what you're saying, we sort of almost taken a little step back from the pandemic. I know just from talking to you a couple of times that you're definitely embracing innovation to sort of the highest degree. So just give us a couple of secrets on how you're doing that, and just a little overview of how you're embracing innovation in your practice.
Great. So to start off with, I based the practices that I have implemented based on what the clients had fed back to me. I think when we think about innovation, we should think about things that actually help people, solving problems that people have raised that you think you have a way of solving. And that's how I've built the practices at the firm. So to start off with, a lot of clients were saying to me, I know that many firms can't really help it, but when I pick up the phone and call with an initial query, I'm greeted by a secretary or someone that's not necessarily legally trained. And I'm already in a very emotionally highly driven state. And I've had to repeat myself maybe 2 or 3 times before I've got to a solicitor to have an initial meeting. So to start off with, our firm, we offer 30 minutes free legal advice, which I think is really important to put the client at ease in knowing who their solicitor is, and their approach and what they see as the merits of their case. And conversely, allows me a bit of an insight into the goals and the ambitions of the client and what objectives they're hoping to reach, to find out whether we're a match and whether I can achieve the objectives they're looking to achieve. And so clients on our website actually have a function where they can look at my diary and that of the other solicitors and actually book an appointment directly with me. So they only have to explain themselves once to a qualified solicitor, and they get that 30 minutes free consultation at a time of their choosing, because they're looking at my diary and they're saying, okay, she's free on all these days. This is the time that works for me, and booking in then. So in that way already puts the client's mind at ease and prevents them having to repeat themselves several times to different individuals. Also, we're innovative in that we're offering our clients evening and weekend appointments on request. And that is something that I know most firms don't offer. The reason why I thought it very important to implement that is because of the impact on the type of clients we serve. Most of our clients have children. And if you think there's childcare commitments, the sorts of conversations we're having can't be in earshot of children. So you've got to think, when would be an appropriate time for that? And most of our clients are working as well. So you've got to think they've got working commitments, childcare commitments. And the sensitive nature of the issues we're discussing means that if they still live with the other party, them knowing about, them seeking some advice on divorce or protection from risk of harm could actually put them at risk. So it would be really important that we can facilitate a meeting maybe on a weekend when the other side goes to the gym, or, on an evening where they're known to go to their friend's house for dinner or something. So it's important that flexibility is there in the mind of myself and the firm, because it means that more clients can be empowered with legal knowledge, which is the overall objective of the firm. The point of giving the 30 minutes free legal advice is because we follow that up with a complimentary email. They can go away and digest that information and then decide on whether proceeding with legal assistance is right for them, or it may be, if it's something like a divorce, it's a big step. They may want some time to think about it, then come back to us when they're ready to take that step. So that's the most important objective in my mind whenever I'm speaking to any clients. And also, as well as the online appointments, we're innovative in that we offer the face-to-face appointments at a meeting room where the client lives or works. And I think that's really important too. What I mean by that is I'm often in, although our firm covers the UK, in terms of face-to-face appointments, I'm often in London or the home counties, seeing clients at meeting rooms with either just themselves or with a friend or family member for support. And again, that feeds into the time element and the busyness of our clients' lives. If they want to come and see me, after work, they may work in a certain area, but it may mean it would be very difficult for them to travel to me to see me in our office in Old Street. So it's really important, I believe, that we're offering all these different initiatives, so to speak, to ensure that clients can receive the legal advice they need.
Brilliant. No, so so for everyone listening, I think one big takeaway from Crystal there is, innovation doesn't have to be overcomplicated, right? When we think of innovation these days, we think of, creating new apps, lots of drones, implementing, VR, all these new technologies. What Crystal's done is, done some pretty low tech solutions, just simple movements of calendars, keeping things flexible, things like that. Just really simple solutions to existing problems that her users are facing, right? So that's what I think is really sort of a key takeaway for everyone, because I mean, I know everyone in this webinar are sort of, in innovation roles, they're dealing with the drones and the VR and things like that. And actually, there are some really, really simple solutions that can alleviate a lot of the existing pain, right? So that's what I think Crystal does really, really well. So Crystal, those solutions, they're sort of, like I said, they're solutions to problems that your users are facing. And that's what I find is that you're very, very, what I would call user-centric, right? You think about your client, your users at the heart of everything that you do. So one thing I am dying to ask you is why do you feel that keeping your user at the heart of everything is so important? Why is it so important to think about your clients so deeply in all of your practices?
I think that first and foremost, taking away law, the reason why I think I enjoy family law so much is because you meet so many different sections of society, so many different people. And importantly, I think the main thing that is important as a family lawyer and as a human is that you listen to others. I think the saying, you have two ears and one mouth, come into play here. And it's very important that you're thinking about what the client wants. And the clients have told me these are things that they find pain points. And so when I had the opportunity when starting my own firm, it was important that I alleviated those pain points so I could serve my clients better. And because family law is an area of law whereby people are telling you some things that they've probably never told anyone else, and really emotionally driven conversations are had every day, it's important you put your client at ease and you're able to empathize with them and show them that you are listening to them and you understand their concerns. And I think making the process as easy as possible for them is another way that you can show from the onset that you really are looking at what's in their best interests and you really do want to help them.
Yeah, brilliant. No, that's great. So we actually have a question coming in through chat, Crystal, and it's great actually because it's what we were talking about just before this webinar started about that sort of well-being aspect. So Chris Bolton has asked, thanks, Crystal. I'm wondering if the approach you are using is helping with the recruitment and retention of staff.
Ah, yes. Oh, it's so strange you said this. We were literally having a conversation.
Like it was scripted, yeah.
Yeah, 5 minutes before we started.
Yeah.
So this is something else that Stalwart Solicitors are doing to innovate the way that perhaps employers look at their employees by increasing the wellbeing services that they provide to their staff. So encouraging companies to implement the idea of allowing their staff to have 30 minutes free family legal advice from us, to increase the staff retention, as you said, increase staff morale, also staff productivity, because we know that 60% of absenteeism at work is due to stress or anxiety related issues. Now, of course, if you're going through a messy divorce or you haven't seen your children for a year, or perhaps even more on the protection side, if you're at risk of harm in your home because of domestic abuse, that's going to impact on your productivity at work. And if your employer is not supportive of that, then of course you're going to think about leaving, or you're just not going to put in as much effort in terms of your work at that practice or that company. So to answer your question, yes, I think that well-being in the workplace is heavily and intrinsically linked to employers understanding that well-being also extends to what's happening in someone's personal life. And so although we do have individual clients, we also do work with companies as well to increase the staff well-being services they provide. And that's actually an area I'm very excited about, because again, when we talk about innovation, I don't think there are any other family law firms that are thinking along those lines, that actually companies can also be your clients and you can help such a wider populace of people within that company by allowing their employer to think about implementing some legal advice.
Brilliant. No, that's great. Right, and Zina just put a little follow-up to that question, so it links on quite nicely. So how is staff retention and recruitment in your own practice with the innovative approach you're taking, sorry? So how is staff retention and recruitment in your own practice with the innovative approach you are taking?
So it's really great. So for me, importantly, anyone that came on board had to have the same ethos as I do about putting clients at the center of what we do. My idea as the leader of the firm is that I don't micromanage all the people that I have within the firm. They are qualified. They have their own spin on how to give legal advice. We're all trained the same way. And it's a collaborative approach. I think that just as I've said that employers need to think about what's going on in staff's personal lives, that's really important within my company as well. So it's very much an open door policy. We all talk about the cases. We talk about, oh, do you think that's a good approach on this particular case? But also if there's anything going on in someone's personal lives, that's not forgotten about, and that's discussed, and it's talked about whether the caseload at the moment is suitable for them, whether they need some time off. So I'm implementing those same practices with the staff that I work with, because I think that's really important, and that's how you build a strong and solid team. And you work together. Family law is actually quite a collaborative area of law, that it's good to discuss how cases are running, your approach to certain cases, because that's how ideas are formed.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. So Hanan has just put a question in. We'll get to your question in just a moment, Hanan. For now, I am actually just dying to ask another question. Sorry about that. So we've just sort of covered quite a few clever things you put in your practice, a lot of innovation that you're sort of putting into it. And I sort of have a feeling that other family law places aren't quite doing the same thing. So what I'm wondering is sort of why not? Can you identify any barriers in family law, reasons why people aren't quite implementing changes quite as much as you are, Crystal? Do you have any thoughts on that? Now, I'm quite interested to reflect on whether that would be similar to other industries myself. So yeah, do you have any thoughts on that, Crystal?
I think because sometimes if things are working and the people at the top are thinking, well, the profits are high and things are working well as they are, why change them? But it depends on your approach to business. In general, I think that in business, but also in life, we're always trying to be a better version of ourselves. We're always trying to think of ways that best serve the community. And so perhaps if a firm or an organization, things are going well as they are, it's almost a case of not rocking the boat. Clients are still coming in. They might not be happy to come into our offices, but they're still doing so. So why change? Whereas I think there will be a turning point, because particularly the younger generation, they're expecting more in terms of the services they receive. I actually co-host my own legal connector for legal professionals, or those wanting to connect with legal professionals. And that involves people that are paralegals, trainees, and looking to get into the industry. There may be graduates from university as well as fully qualified lawyers. And it's really interesting having conversations with them, because they're saying things to me like, well, I'm going to interviews for training contracts, but most important to me, I always ask the question, what can you do for me? What's my work-life balance going to be like? Because I think in law, it's one of those professions whereby you work very hard to become a lawyer, and then you start working at a practice, and you can get stuck in habits and the culture of that practice. So I think, to answer your question, I think because a lot of these practices are working well as they are, they're thinking change could be a big thing. And it's, in some respects, they may believe it's a gamble, because it may mean it's more work for them, or will clients adopt the new approach? So yeah, it's just your way of thinking, I suppose.
Yeah. So reluctance to change. I'm sure no other industry suffers from that, right? Not that I can think of. No, just kidding. Everyone suffers from that. So that's really relatable. No, thanks for that, Crystal. Brilliant. So let's go on to Hanan's question. So Hanan, we're going on to a bit more of a sort of broader fun topic here. So Crystal, I'm very interested to hear your thoughts. It sounds like something Hanan probably should have copyrighted it before he puts it into chat, because it's actually a really good idea in itself. So Hanan is asking, have you explored using metaverse tools to improve family dispute resolution, enhance client engagement, and bring a sense of fun to the process? So I think that's awesome. So metaverse being obviously, the sort of virtual reality side of things. So maybe to take it a little bit more broad than that, new technology, things like VR, augmented reality, not just the metaverse. Do you think there's any sort of room for that in family law in the future? Any sort of future where we start to use those technologies?
I think so, yes. Now, family law is one of those areas, of course, you're dealing with very sensitive and quite serious topics. However, there's some areas of family law that are very positive and are about improving relationships between people, particularly co-parents and things like that. So at the moment, there are things like co-parenting apps that I often recommend to my clients to help increase the collaboration between parents and try and help them work together separately, because of course I'm usually involved for around a year and a half, but I'm going to then slip away and they'll have to co-parent until the child is 16, and then of course beyond, there's so many things that happen after a child is technically an adult, but they'll still have to make decisions together. So I think from that perspective I could see the metaverse and sort of that the VR, virtual reality, working perhaps in tools to help parents work together. So from the perspective of looking at positive change, throughout the process and helping them work together separately, just as I'm recommending now the parenting app, if there was a VR tool or something that could, they could meet in the metaverse and they could talk about things that way, just ways of improving communication between people. I think I could see that working.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure one day those sort of tools will be sort of widely spread throughout law. Possibly, we'll see in the future. So that's a great one. Right, so guys, just as a reminder, this is coming up to your sort of last chance to ask Crystal a question. So if you do have anything you want to ask, please do put it into chat. But Crystal, I want to take it a little bit more broad now. So obviously, not only are you a family lawyer, you are also an entrepreneur in your own right, right? You started your company in 2019, and I'm sure a lot of people here know that starting a company isn't an easy journey. There's lots of trials and tribulations, and I think that we all get our own sort of learning points, right? So everyone here has their own learning points from starting little ventures in their own right, and everyone has a bit of wisdom that they can share. So Crystal, just from a sort of business standpoint, so sort of taking the law side out of the equation, do you have any sort of nuggets of wisdom that you picked up along the way on just starting a business, running a business, and getting your sort of first set of clients? Do you have any sort of tips around that?
Yes. So I would say that when you start a company, it's very easy to overcomplicate things. So to think of every potential eventuality that could ever happen, and that in itself could prevent you from actually putting one foot in front of the other and actually getting the ball rolling. So for me, the first thing was making sure that I got accreditation from my governing body, which is called the SRA, Solicitors Regulation Authority. So that was the first step. And then I had to work on all the paperwork for that. So it's about having a clear action plan, but not overcomplicating things. I'm also of the view, I don't think you need thousands and thousands of pounds to start a company. Most businesses can be started in a small way, and then to grow organically. I think that's a better way, particularly, some people might have a lot of capital to start a company, and that's absolutely fine. But there's many people out there who are real budding entrepreneurs that may be thinking, oh, I don't have a lot of funds to start a company, so I should just try and build that up before I begin. I think now with the idea that there's lots of grants and loans out there for innovative professionals that want to start companies to enhance society and have great ideas, I think it's worth exploring that, and also thinking about the small things you can do to start your company. And then, when you do have the funds, then the company can grow organically. You don't need to think, I need thousands of pounds to do so.
Brilliant. So think big but start small. I think that's 100%. A really good nugget of wisdom there. Yeah, that's awesome.
And just do something. Don't be paralyzed by thinking there's so much to do that you don't actually end up doing anything. Just one task at a time. Take things in your stride and grow organically.
Just get the ball rolling. Okay. So Crystal, I'm going to be a little bit mean here and put you on the spot. So please, if this is a little bit of a curveball for you, feel free to decline the question. I can go to another one. But Zena just reminded everyone in chat that you were a jazz singer in a previous life. Well, I'm sure you still are, actually. I'm sure you still do sing. Do you have any sort of learnings from, learning jazz singing and things like that, being in that field. Do you have any learnings from that that you sort of implemented in starting your own business? Is there any sort of overlap there whatsoever?
100%,
Oh, awesome.
because jazz in general is quite an improvisation type of genre in terms of music. So it's very much intuitive. The musicians I work with are jazz musicians. Often there'll be different instrumentals, and I'll come in whenever I want to come in terms of singing. So you've got to learn how to think on your feet. Transferable skills for business, because it's particularly when you're dealing with clients or other third parties, you obviously don't know sometimes the response to a question you're going to ask. So you've got to be able to think on your feet. You've got to be professional. You're being a jazz singer, you're performing to a crowd. Being a business owner, you're selling your services or engaging other professionals to work with you. So you've got to be professional at all times. I think this should go without saying for anything, but you've got to have fun with it. The reason why I enjoy singing jazz is because I often perform with the musicians that are my friends. So it just feels like we're having a fun time on stage. And in business, you've got to be having fun with it. You should be engaging in a business and working within a business that you actually enjoy, because we are working most of the time. So if you don't enjoy it, it's going to make it a chore, and it's not going to make the process as enjoyable as it should be. And I think your best ideas come when you're having fun and you're enjoying what you're working within. So that's really important too.
Wow. That's an amazing answer. Thank you for that, Crystal. And that's a pro tip for everyone, actually. I discovered this as a little icebreaker in some of my courses. But if you ever want to get an insight from anyone, ask them what their first job was and sort of one lesson that they learned today, and you just find out loads of great information. So that's a tip for everyone. Definitely do look into people's sort of past lives and where they came from. It's really interesting stuff. But we have another question from Chris here. So thank you very much for that, Chris. So, Crystal, if you're okay with it, we're going to go back to the topic of AR and VR to see if you have any thoughts around that. So, back to that. So, Chris is stuck by the phrase "working together separately." I work with teams across Wales. I also work as a union rep on dispute resolution. Could you recommend any apps that I could use in this space around building better relationships and resolving disputes in the workplace? So you might not have a perfect recommendation for that, Crystal, but any sort of technologies that you found recently that you're sort of implementing, and you said about that sort of flexible schedule that you provide your client. Any sort of apps and tech that you're using around that would be amazing if you have any recommendations.
Well, I talked about some of the parenting apps that I recommend to my clients, which is probably not perhaps an ideal fit for employees. But the parenting apps I use are Our Family Wizard, which is actually award-winning, and all of my clients have given me really positive feedback on that, and also Cozy Parenting app. Now, in terms of employment apps, there probably are equivalents, which, Chris, if you do send me an email, or I'm sure my details will be available, you can contact me and I can try and help you find the equivalent for an employer-employee type relationship. I think it's really important, as you said, to make sure your team is strong and that they feel supported. Most importantly, I think in any relationship, whether that be personal, business, the person has to feel listened to and that you understand what they're trying to communicate to you. You might not have a perfect answer to their question, but as long as they feel like you've heard them and that you're trying to give an answer to that question, and if you don't know the answer now, you'll come back to them with that. I think that in and of itself fosters a relationship of mutual respect and importantly, staff retention. And having good quality members of staff that go with you throughout the duration of your company.
That's absolutely brilliant. Amazing. Right. So, Chris, just to add on to that, I'm putting in a link now for a cool little app called spatial.chat. And it's kind of, obviously the metaverse, really, really cool. So, in terms of doing working together separately, like you said, but obviously not many people have VR headsets as it stands. Spatial kind of allows you to create a sort of metaverse field, sort of just on the web. So Chris, definitely do check that out. Me and my dad, who's in the call, was actually testing it out a couple of years ago, and we thought it was really good for sort of running training courses and things like that. Brilliant. So Crystal, I have one last question to ask you. So guys, it really is your last opportunity to ask Crystal any questions, because we'll be wrapping up after this if there's no more. But my sort of final question that I am dying to ask you is just sort of going forward. So going forward, how are you going to sort of keep implementing innovation into your practice, keep, putting in those changes? And do you have any maybe sneak peeks of things that you're trying to implement at the minute? Just sort of talk about the future a little bit for me.
Yes. So, well, in terms of things like implementing the VR and things like that, I think the idea would be perhaps having links with organizations or companies whereby we're the family law practitioner, but there would be a section of the journey of the client whereby it's almost part of the process upon which they actually speak to this third-party professional in terms of working together separately and then implementing maybe the VR and those sorts of practices to put a fun spin on what can be, to start off with, quite a difficult family dynamic. So I think maybe implementing a third party within my process. So I'm doing the family legal advice, and at present I do have collaborations with lots of third parties separately, but maybe implementing it more seamlessly in terms of the live process of our cases. That could be quite interesting, I think, going forward. And also perhaps thinking about in terms of responding to what clients want, whether there's anything else that the clients are telling me they want. So perhaps just feeding back to the clients. We do often ask them throughout the life cycle of the case, how are things going? Is there anything that we could do to make the process easier for you or more user friendly? And I think things will come up, because that's how they've come up so far. Things will come up, even if it's things like, okay, the forms you send us, perhaps that could be delivered in a different way, or to make it easier for me. Or perhaps using dictation software to dictate messages to clients instead of sending them letters. I don't know. There's lots of ideas I have in my mind. I'm thinking these could just be other ways. Perhaps in an ever-changing world, people don't even want to read letters. They'd rather me send them a voice note in terms of telling them the key pieces of information in an initial advice letter, for example. So that may be the future, that there's more kind of me sending them videos of me telling them the information rather than sending them a letter.
Amazing. So it sounds like at its core, it's about, being open to the new ideas and not being resistant to change. So that's amazing,
100%.
Crystal. Yeah. Brilliant. Right. So we've got no more questions in chat. I've asked. Well, I've got more questions, but I didn't quite get a chance to ask them. We do need to sort of wrap up here. But Crystal, I do just want to thank you, because I got some amazing insights there just personally. Zena, do we have time for one more question? Just give me a thumbs up.
One last quick question.
Brilliant. So Chris is asking, just wondering about how you might influence things like the Ministry of Justice. So do you think maybe the Ministry of Justice have a watchful eye at how Crystal is doing in her firm, and maybe going to steal some ideas? How do you think maybe your practice could influence the sort of wider things like the ministry?
Well, I'd love that, because I think that it's really important that these sorts of practices are implemented across the profession. And it's important that really you think about your role in terms of a legal practitioner, but also making sure that any ideas are put forward. So it would be the idea of, I do some speaking at events and things like that already, but it would be ideas in terms of thinking about having meetings with people in senior positions that actually are policymakers or people that can actually affect change within the profession. And that's always things that I'm looking to achieve. I'm always looking at the next steps, and I'm actually a trustee for a human trafficking organisation, that labour trafficking and human trafficking, and we're at the moment looking to speak to members of Parliament and things like that about those sorts of issues that affect those communities. So I'm always thinking of innovative ways in terms of accessing the powers that be, so to speak, to make innovation more on the agenda of the legal profession.
Amazing. And we do we're going to go to Zena to hear some sneak peeks of the Innohives coming up. But Crystal, just very briefly, do you have any sort of last words you want to leave us with just as we wrap up this interview?
I would say that I hope I've given you some knowledge here
Oh, you
today,
have,
and
definitely.
I've shown that legal professionals and law is not a one size that fits all. I'd like to leave with people thinking about that obtaining legal advice should be something that's accessible to everyone in the family law sphere, particularly because it affects every aspect of your business as well as your personal life and your ability to be able to flourish and be the best version of yourself you can. Our motto is empowering clients with legal knowledge here at Stalwart Solicitors, and I'd be happy to speak to any one of you about any legal matters you have pending or that you're concerned about. So just please get in touch, and you can add me on LinkedIn, or you can go on our website, which is www.stalwartsolicitors.com.
Amazing. Brilliant. Yeah, thanks so much, Crystal. So we are going to hand back over to Zina. Crystal, if you do want to put any links, any emails into chat, just in case anyone here does want to get in touch, please feel free to do so. No pressure though. But Zina, I am dying to hear what we have in store for the next couple of Innohive events. Yeah, let's hear from you.
So first off, thank you, Connor. I think you were an expert interviewer, definitely rivaled Paxman. So brilliant. And Crystal, you astound me with what you have achieved. And thank you so much for sharing your experiences with our audience. I love that. Think big, start small, and just do something. Listen, understand what people are trying to say to you. They're just, like you say, simple messages, but so important. So thank you so much. And I'm hoping that Crystal will actually be one of our speakers at this year's annual conference as well. So there will be an opportunity to meet Crystal again later in the year. So another good reason for coming in November. So what we've got coming up is Tuesday, the 9th of April is our next session, and we'll be looking at campaign-driven information. And then in May, I do believe, Tony, you are going to be sharing some wisdom with us. So I'm still awaiting a topic, but I know the last 2 sessions that you've run for us in the 2 previous years have been incredible. Creativity in the brain, leadership, how we think. So that's going to be a session not to miss in May. So thank you all for joining us today. Thank you again to Crystal and Connor. And yeah, thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks.
And guys, just as you sign off, Crystal has put